Are the numbers going? All right.
Well, you know what? 1 second. Let me just turn on the light.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world today. This is The World Today, and I'm your host, Dr. Sophia Catherine Rothschild. With me today is a very special guest. She is Rothstein. Rothstein is the co-founder and CEO of Stand With Us. Stand With Us is a 20-year-old international non-partisan educational institution working on 6 continents, fighting anti-Semitism and supporting Israel, and has been one of the most significant, fastest-growing players in the pro-Israel educational space. It has also educated thousands of people in middle school, high school, and colleges every single day and every single year through fellowships, internships, and curriculum. Their social media platform has reached millions of people each day. Stand With Us has a powerful legal department, a Holocaust education department, and a growing coalition of non-denominational Zionist rabbis. Before co-founding Stand With Us, Roz worked as a professional in Los Angeles Jewish community and then became a family therapist for 2 decades, licensed in California. Since its inception, Stand With Us, the Forward magazine has twice named Mrs. Rothstein as one of the 50 most influential Jews in America, and also the Jewish Post named her twice as one of the 50 most influential Jews in the world today. Roz, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
For our audience, seem not to grasp it, could you briefly remind us of what happened on October 7th of this year?
So at about 6:30 a.m. on October the 7th, there was a red alert all over the state of Israel. There were rockets coming in from Gaza. It's usually nothing new. Rockets come in from Hamas and Islamic Jihad on a regular basis. But on this particular day, there were more, and the red alerts were all over the country for some reason, because there were so many coming in. And under that cover, there was a breach. So about maybe 1,500 terrorists is what they're saying, breached by land and by sea and by air. And they came into Israel right near the Gaza borders, and they entered all the different communities, and they began to slaughter people, to burn people, to kill them in front of their family members, and then to kidnap people. So now they have about 200 people that they've abducted and they're in Gaza. These are civilians, mainly civilians. They murdered 1,400 people. This is the biggest slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust finished. So we're looking at a international mourning going on right now for the Jewish people and for our allies who care about Israel and care about Jewish people. And it's just very difficult right now for all of us.
Yes, indeed. I know, for example, you are the daughter of Holocaust survivors, so this definitely is very troubling for you at this moment.
Well, it's a trigger for all the things that I grew up with, hearing about the sadism of the Nazis, about family members hiding behind closets and under dead people that were already shot, which is what happened here in some of the communities. The survivors right now are telling stories of even more sadistic occurrences than we see in the Holocaust. So, burning a baby in front of their parents, decapitating a mother in front of her children, booklets on how to torture people, taking the eyes out of children, cutting them out in front of their parents. So we're looking at just horrific stories. No words. I mean, there are no words. So yes, this is a trigger. This is what happens when you raise children, the Palestinian children in Gaza and the West Bank, to hate Jews and to want to murder them, to hate their next door neighbors so much that they want to destroy their country. This is what happens. This is the end result of that.
Indeed. Yes, indeed. I myself have ancestors who perished in the Holocaust, so I can definitely relate to that situation. But one thing that I always go back to is that when I have children and there's a danger, I take them and hid them. Hamas and the other jihadists, they tend to hide behind children. This must be a very testing moment for the IDF.
Yes, that's exactly right. So there are going to be more casualties in Gaza because of exactly what you just said. They're launching rockets from hospitals, they're launching rockets from schools, United Nations schools, civilian areas, apartment buildings where civilians leave. And if you're Hamas, you don't want the civilians to leave because it makes it more difficult for Israel. So to hit the apartment building where a rocket just came from. So the policy now, it looks like, is that every time that a rocket comes in to Israel, Israel is firing back to that very spot. And the Israelis asked the civilian population to move south away from the Israel-Gaza border, and Hamas tried to prevent it. They hurt people, they threatened people, they stole their food, and etc. So Hamas does not want them to leave for obvious reasons. They want to continue to be surrounded by real people who will be hurt in the counterattacks by Israel. They will be hurt. So Israel says, go south, people. Take your women, your children, go south, get out of the way. And Hamas is not really encouraging it, allowing it. They're trying to prevent it. It's a mess.
Yes, indeed. Also, you mentioned rockets. Most people don't remember that the European Union gave them rockets to build up a water system, and they they, in the sadistic way, they dig up the ground and take out the pipes and use them to make rockets to fire at Israel.
That's true too, like the cement.
Mhm.
The cement that they get, even from Israel, that they get through the corridors, and they use the cement to build the tunnels. The money that they receive from the international community, and they use the money to buy weapons and the things that, and to finance the murder, the plans that they have. So, all of it is just invested in war, never peace. Their charter talks about the annihilation of the state of Israel, murder of Jews, their own charter. This is Hamas charter, Islamic Brotherhood originally. So, this is not a partner for peace. Like people say, yeah, let's do a ceasefire, and then Egypt and other countries can broker a peace. Well, Hamas is telling us and acting the part. They're not interested. They don't want peace.
I have to ask this question. Is it true that that Arafat was once offered a peace deal in which he was given like 98% of the West Bank and he turned it down? Is that true?
Yes, it is. It's part of Oslo, and unfortunately, at the end of the Oslo, just before 2000, he was offered pretty much everything that they were asking for. There was going to be land swaps. You can read about it in Dennis Ross's book. He was involved in that negotiation, and instead of being the peacemaker and wanting to move into the future, I think that it didn't really go along with the Islamic Jihad radical thinking of destroying the state of Israel, and and having the whole area, not just a piece of the area. So they don't want to be next door neighbors. They want to replace the state of Israel. It's always been true. It's always a game if they ever, pretended, like Arafat pretended to walk towards Oslo and peace, all the while training little children to grow up to be suicide bombers and jihadists. It's incoherent.
Okay, indeed. Also, I noticed that a lot of the Hamas people in this country, they're going into the schools and they're going into the colleges and they're filling people's head with nonsense about Israel being an apartheid state. Could you speak to us on that issue?
Israel being an apartheid state is another lie. There are several lies that they promote, and they promote it together so that it is, confusing to people, gaslighting to people, blaming Israel for the lack of peace when you can clearly read the charters and listen to the words. There is no desire for peace, only violence and destruction. And in terms of apartheid reality, listen, if you speak to Arab Israelis, you will hear that that they have full rights. They live in Israel. They're advancing in every possible career. The campuses are filled with the numbers of more representative numbers than there are Arabs living in the state of Israel. So if 20% of the country's population is Arab, you've got more than that number in so many of the colleges. In terms of apartheid, I mean, we've got Arabs who are, in the military, in the Supreme Court, in the government. It's a bunch of nonsense. So now that's inside Israel. Outside of Israel, the Palestinians have their own governments. You have Mahmoud Abbas in the West Bank, and you've got Hamas in Gaza. Israel is not running their governments, and so what is it? Where's the apartheid? Is nonsense, and it's just another lie. And if you keep repeating a lie, it's just like the Nazis said: keep repeating it over and over, and it will become accepted truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you very much. I also have to. There's also this other idea going around that some of the original founders of Hamas and Hezbollah and others have, and during, like say, in World War, they're pre-people in World War II, they supported the Nazis, did they not?
Well, what we do know is that many of the propagandists that fled when the World War II was finished, propagandists went to Egypt and they used their abilities to create cartoons that were more relevant to the Arab world. If you're talking about the Hajj Amin al-Husseini, who lived in the 20s and the 30s and early 40s and collaborated with Hitler and led Muslims to become Nazis and help Hitler. If you're talking about Hajj Amin al-Husseini, that is absolutely true. We have footage, we have photographs of the head of the Palestinians at the time, this Hajj Amin al-Husseini, the Mufti of Jerusalem, working in collaboration with Hitler to annihilate the Jews of the Middle East. So if that's what you're referring to, that is exactly right.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. Also, could you speak on the notion that the Jewish people have lived on that land for thousands of years. I mean, we go back to King David and King Solomon, the way they digging every day they're digging up all these archaeological sites of ancient Jewish and Israeli history of the Temple Mount, and also throughout Israel, ancient synagogues that goes back thousands of years before the Arabs. So I can't understand why are people still promoting this nonsense that the Jews are colonizers.
Yes, well, it's another lie, this colonization lie. So let's take a look at this for a moment. Everywhere you walk, you will see Hebrew, the Hebrew letters from thousands of years ago. The story of, if you're a religious person, you'll see the story of God's promise to the Jewish people in the Old Testament over and over and over. The promise is right there. The purchase by Abraham of the land to bury his wife Sarah is right there in the Old Testament, which is thousands of years old. So if you're spiritual, you can take a look at that and see the wording in this thousands of year old document. But not only that, a bar and bat mitzvah, when kids reach 12 and 13 years old, girls 12, boys 13, sometimes girls 13, doesn't matter. This coming of age, quote unquote, these children are reading the same text that they read thousands of years ago. So they are speaking the same language that you're looking at in this old document. The Jewish people have been in that area for thousands of years. And even when they were thrown out by empires like the Romans and the Babylonians, etc., even then, they always maintained a presence in the land of Israel. And so, take a look at Sfat, Safed. If you look it up, you will see big, long history that's just recent history. Take a look at Jerusalem. Take a look at Tiberias. Take a look at Hebron, Hebron. And you will see this deep, long history of the Jewish people to that very area. So this is indeed the ancestral homeland of the Jewish people.
Okay. And finally, what would you say to all these liberal media people over here supporting Hamas? Because if these people were living under Hamas rule, they would have been killed long ago. I see liberals and many people over here in this country promoting Hamas and saying from the river to the sea, and yet if they were in on the Hamas rule at the moment, they would have been killed. So could you explain to my viewers as to why Americans would even think of supporting Hamas?
I personally don't know why anybody would support a group of people that would behead a baby in front of their parents and then burn the parents alive. I don't understand what kind of vicious mentality that would be. So frankly, most Western thinking people are supporting the state of Israel and what Israel now needs to do to go in and get its hostages and try everything it can to eliminate Hamas, which is the threat next door. You can't keep living next to a terrorist entity that says they're going to kill you and does everything to try to do it. So you can't live like that. The people cannot live like that. And they say they have 250 of our people in there, not just Israelis, but Americans and people from other countries. They say they have 250. What Israel knows right now is that they have 200. So you cannot expect to massacre and decapitate and rape and pillage Jewish people and then get away with it and take away 200 to 250 other Jewish people, and I'm sure that there are non-Jewish people there also. It doesn't matter. These are people, real people, that were decapitated and murdered and tortured in front of their friends and family, people at a music festival, etc. So how anyone can stand up for massacres is completely beyond me. So I do not understand. But I see, most of the journalists I see are very emotional about what just happened and what is happening. And as the stories are uncovered about burnt babies and raped mothers and and the hostages and the stories and the anguish, most of them are tearful and understand that this is inhumane, and it is extraordinary that anyone would make excuses for that kind of inhumane activity.
Well, thank you so much, Roz, and give us some parting words of encouragement to our listeners, if you can.
Well, the Jewish people right now internationally are very brokenhearted. I will tell you that. We are sharing what we call, an international state of mourning, but we are brokenhearted, but we're not broken. So make no mistake. We find strength in the goal of making things better. We find strength in the idea that Palestinian people living next door should not have to live under the rule of Hamas, where they drag you through the streets to in case they believe that you might be a collaborator with the state of Israel, just in case they believe that, just to dissuade other people from maybe being a collaborator with the state of Israel. So the viciousness, the torture, the insanity going on inside of Gaza for the Palestinian people is tragic. You want to blame all that on Israel, you're one kind of person. You want to see this and see it for what it is. Israel needs to go, it needs to get the hostages, needs to eliminate the Hamas threat, needs to defend its citizens, is obligated to defend its citizens. So that's where we're at right now. And I hope that everybody understands that Israel will survive, will thrive, and will eliminate the threat in whatever way it needs to do it.
Yes, indeed. And also, in closing, in fact, it's now been confirmed that the hospital was not destroyed by Israel. It was a misfired rocket from the Islamic Jihad. Roz, as always, thank you so much. It's a pleasure. And until next time, Ham Israel Chai.
Am Yisrael Chai, absolutely.
Thank you.